Good afternoon. My name is Tim Pickering. Turn my camera on here. My name is Tim Pickering. I manage the Marine Highway Program for the Maritime Administration. I'd like to welcome you to the United States Marine Highway Program's Fiscal Year 2023 Grant Webinar. First, I'd like to start by introducing the members of the MARAD team. Bill Pappy, the Associate Administrator for Ports and Waterways, and Tritha Cromie, the Deputy Associate Administrator for Ports and Waterways. We also have numerous MARAD staff members from the Office of Ports and Waterways, the Marine Highway Program Office, the Office of Chief Counsel, Office of Environment, and the Office of Civil Rights. Before we begin, I'd like to pass this to Mr. Bill Pappy, our Associate Administrator, for some opening remarks.
Thanks, Tim. And before I start my remarks, just want to let everybody know, if you haven't already seen, that this presentation is being recorded. So just for your awareness. Thanks again, Tim. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Marine Highway Program's Notice of Funding Opportunity Applicant Webinar. I think you'll find the presentation informative. And should you have any questions, we look forward to having a dialogue with you during the question and answer session at the end of the presentation. The recently passed National Defense Authorization Act made significant changes to the Marine Highway Grant Program, removing the project designation phase, which opened up the grant program to many new potential applicants, and further changes added bulk freight and added freight services that connect to Canada and Mexico. And of course, there was the name change to the United States Marine Highway Program. These are exciting changes, and we look forward to receiving your applications to see how innovative our industry partners are and how they plan to make use of these new authorities. Again, thank you for attending, and if you have any questions, we look forward to answering them at the end of our webinar. Tim, back to you.
Tim, you're on mute.
Oh, thank you. Talking to myself here. Thank you, Bill. Before we dive into the presentation, I'd like to make some administrative remarks. The webinar is being recorded. A copy of the webinar slide deck and frequently asked questions will be made available on our Marine Highway webpage in a few days at the link provided. Please mute your microphones. If you have a question during the presentation, please send your question to Marinehighway, mh@dot.gov. Those questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. If you have a question during the Q&A session, please raise your hand and you'll be called upon. We will answer as many questions as we can during the webinar session. However, any questions that require more thought or research will be added to the FAQs. We will also ask you to put your name and what group you represent in the group chat so we can record attendance. Disclaimer is to inform you that if you receive conflicting information during the webinar, the language in the NOFO is to be followed. If you find such conflicting language, please let the program office know so we immediately so we can address it. For the agenda, since many of the applicants are new to the program, we will start with a Marine Highway Program overview. Then we will discuss the significant changes made to the program by the James M. Inhofe National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2023. We will discuss eligible applicants and eligible elements that can be procured using Marine Highway grant funding. We will discuss the areas that must be addressed in the application, including merit criteria, selection considerations, project readiness, and domestic preference requirements. We will talk briefly about the evaluation and post-award, and then we will take questions. So the Marine Highway Program was created by the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007. It was created to reduce landside congestion by the designation of marine highway routes, and then the Secretary can designate marine highway projects along those routes. The program currently has 29 marine highway routes that reach 41 states, the District of Columbia, and the 5 United States territories. It covers over 19,500 miles of navigable waterways. The program manages the designation of routes, the issuance of the Notice of Funding Opportunity, review of applications, and recommendation of awards. The management of post-award activities is done by the Maritime Administration's Port Infrastructure Development Programs grant specialists. This map shows the current marine highway routes. They are numbered to correspond with the interstate highway that they parallel. The Ohio River is, for example, the Marine Highway Route M70, the Atlantic waters off the East Coast, is Route M95, and so forth. Those states without navigable waterways are unshaded. The National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2023 made the most significant changes to the program to date. The act renamed the program from America's Marine Highway Program to the United States Marine Highway Program. It expanded the definition of marine highway transportation to include bulk, liquid, and loose cargoes, and the program can now support the movement of freight between U.S. ports located on a marine highway to and from ports in Canada and Mexico. This was to allow the program to divert cargo from the interstate highways and the congested border crossings. The most significant change was the removal of the project designation phase. That increased the number of eligible applicants from 58 designated projects that we had at our peak to any public entity along a marine highway route or a private entity that receives an endorsement from a route sponsor. The specific eligibility requirements will be discussed in depth later. Lastly, it allows rural projects and tribal applicants to request an increase in the federal share up to 100% of the cost. So the NOFO is posted on grants.gov on February 28th, 2023. Grant applications must be received by April 28th, 2023 by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Late applications will not be accepted for any reason. On December 29th, 2022, the Consolidated Appropriations Act for fiscal year 2023 appropriated $10 million for the Marine Highway Grant Program. An additional $2,423,000 in unexpended prior year United States Marine Highway Program funding is available for fiscal year 2023 notice of funding opportunity. Therefore, a total of up to $12,123,000 is available in funding for the fiscal year 2023 United States Marine Highway Program. MARAD retains $300,000 of the funding for grant administration and oversight of the grant awards. This notice of funding solicits applications for projects to be funded under the United States Marine Highway Program. There is no minimum award size or maximum award size. MARAD seeks to obligate funds by September 30, 2026. Obligation occurs when a selected applicant and MARAD enter into a written grant agreement after the applicant has satisfied applicable administrative requirements, including transportation planning and environmental review requirements such as those under the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA. Eligible applicants include a state, a political subdivision of a state or local government, a metropolitan or regional planning organization, port authorities, and tribal governments. A United States private sector operator of marine highway projects or private sector owners of facilities may also apply. Alaska Native corporations are also eligible to apply. Private applicants and Alaska Native corporations require an endorsement letter from the Marine Highway route sponsor. The route sponsors had the opportunity to attend a webinar specifically to discuss the National Defense Authorization Act and their new responsibilities. The route sponsors have also been provided with a sample endorsement letter they can use as a guide. Multiple project applicants can submit a joint application, however, they must identify a lead grant applicant as the primary point of contact. Joint applicants must include the description of the roles and responsibilities of each applicant and must be signed by each applicant. Identification of each awardee in the event there is more than one single award recipient must be included as well. Please note, if the applicant is a public or private entity, they are required by law to comply with all federal requirements. This slide also links to the designated marine highway routes, as well as the route sponsor's contact information. That information is also included as an appendix to the NOFO. Eligible projects or components of projects for fiscal year 2023 United States Marine Highway Program grants must provide a coordinated and capable alternative to landside transportation, mitigate or relieve landside congestion, promote marine highway transportation, or use vessels documented under Chapter 121 of Title 46 and support the development, expansion, or promotion of marine highway transportation. Eligible projects for port and terminal infrastructure, cargo and/or vessel handling equipment, new or used vessel purchase, lease or modification, and development phase activities that are in support of eligible United States Marine Highway Program projects. However, developmental phase projects will be considered as planning grants and will be less competitive than capital projects. They will be evaluated against the same merit criteria as capital grants, i.e. construction projects. However, the information does not need to be as driven by data as capital projects, since data is often an outcome of the project to be planned. MERAD will also consider how the planning project, once implemented, will ultimately further the merit criteria. I'm going to hand off to my colleague Fred Jones, and he will discuss application information.
Thank you, Tim. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about the application components first. The application should describe whether the project contains more than one component and should also describe if components can be carried out by parties other than the applicant. MERAD expects and will impose requirements on fund recipients to ensure that all components included in the application will be delivered as part of the United States Marine Highway Program project, regardless of whether the component includes federal funding. The status of each component should be clearly described, for example, in the project schedule. MERAD may award funds for a component instead of a larger project if the component independently meets all eligibility requirements described in Section C, independently aligns well with the selection criteria identified in this NOFO, and meets NEPA requirements with respect to independent utility. Independent utility means that the component will represent a transportation improvement that is usable even if no other improvements is made in the area and will be ready for the intended use upon completion of that component's construction. Now, all project components that are represented together in a single application must demonstrate a relationship or connection among them. Applicants should identify their priority for funding each component. Let's talk funding restriction. This program will not fund the purchase of installation of fully automated cargo handling equipment or the installation of terminal infrastructure that is designed for fully automated cargo handling equipment. Now, if the Secretary determines such equipment would result in a net loss of jobs, a reduction in the quality of jobs within the port terminal. Applicants that propose projects that include the acquisition of eligible cargo handling equipment or terminal infrastructure for cargo handling equipment must indicate in their application whether the application is fully automated or whether the terminal infrastructure is designed for fully automated equipment. Assistance provided under this notice of funding opportunity may not be used to improve port and landside-based infrastructure outside the United States. It may not be used to raise sunken vessels, construct buildings or physical facilities, or acquire land unless the Secretary determines that such activities are necessary to carry out the Marine Highway Transportation Project for which assistance is provided. Grant funds may only be used for the purpose described in this notice of funding opportunity and may not be used and I repeat, and may not be used for operating subsidies or to support opposed union organizing. Guidance on cost sharing or matching is found in section C2 of the Notice of Funding Opportunity. The federal share of the cost of any eligible United States Marine Highway Program project may not exceed 80%. Therefore, an eligible applicant must provide at least 20% of the project cost from a non-federal source. The application must demonstrate sources of non-federal funds being committed to the project. Matching funds may be from state funds, local funds, or from private funds. Bottom line, the more non-federal funds committed to your project results in a more competitive application. Okay, continuing with cost sharing and matching, Myriad will require grant recipients to complete the project using at least the level of non-federal funding specified in the application. Matching funds may not be counted as a non-federal share for both this program or other federal grant programs, nor may they consist of previously incurred costs or previously expended funds. Tribal and rural applications may request an increase in the federal share up to 100%. Applicants should use the equation on this slide when determining the cost share for their project. Now let's talk about how to apply for this funding opportunity. Application material may be accessed on grants.gov and must be submitted by 11:59 p.m. on Friday, April 28th, 2023. No late submissions are accepted. Once again, no late submissions will be accepted. Only one application is permitted per eligible applicant. If the applicant submits multiple applications, only the last one received by Myriad will be considered. Your application must include the standard form 424 and the project narrative. Myriad expects the project narrative to be prepared with standard formatting preferences, including single-space document, using standard 12-point font, such as Times New Roman, with 1-inch margin, and narrative text in 1 column only. Documents should be submitted in PDF format. The project narrative may not exceed 20 pages in length, including cover pages and table of contents, appendices, and letters of support. If possible, website links to supporting documents should be provided rather than copying and supporting materials. It is important to ensure that the web links are currently active and working. Myriad expects that the project narrative will follow the basic outline provided on this slide to ensure that the application addresses all applicable requirements. This will assist evaluators in locating relevant information. Please note that details regarding each section can be found in the corresponding NOFO listed on the right side of this slide. The project description. This section of the project narrative should include a detailed statement of work that describes the proposed project. This section should also discuss how the project promotes, expands, or develops a marine highway transportation service as defined in section A3 of the Notice of Funding Opportunity. This includes a description of the type of cargo moved by the project or marine highway transportation service supported by the project and the ports by the service. If submitting a joint application, applicants should also identify in this section the lead recipient of the award, who will also be responsible for financial administration of the project and the description of the roles and responsibilities of each applicant. Applications must include a signed letter of support from all legal joint applicants as an attachment. Applicants should also include in this section certifications of authorization or other supporting documentation necessary to establish an applicant's authority to carry out the project. If citations should be the citation should be sufficient detail to demonstrate that the applicant is an eligible applicant and to show how the applicant is relevant to the work on the property where the grant funds will be spent. Project location. This section of the application should describe the project location, including a map and photographs of the project's location and the connection to existing transportation infrastructure and geospatial data describing the project location. The application should also describe the marine highway transportation route being served by the project. The location of the project is where the requested grant funds will be used, not the headquarters, not the corporate office, or the main offices of the applicant. This section should only clearly identify whether the project is located in a rural or urban area as defined in section A3 of the Notice of Funding Opportunity, or located in a historically disadvantaged community, also as defined in section A3 of the Notice of Funding Opportunity, which includes the relevant census tract. A project location in both an urban and a rural area will be designated as urban if the majority of the project costs will be spent in an urban area. Conversely, a project located in both an urban and a rural area will be designated as rural if the majority of the project costs will be spent in the rural area. For United States Marine Highway Program planning grants, the location of the project being planned, prepared, or designed will be used as urban or rural designation. Applicants must ensure that the location and the address of the project is correctly identified in their application. A project located in both historically disadvantaged communities and areas that are not historically disadvantaged areas will be designated as historically disadvantaged community if the majority of the project costs will be spent in the area that qualifies as a historically disadvantaged community. For the United States Marine Highway Program planning grants, the location of the project will be planned, prepared, or designed will be for a historically disadvantaged community designations. The description should also include demographic information describing any minority, low income, or limited proficient communities in the vicinity of the potentially impacted by the proposed project. Applicants are encouraged to utilize EPA's EJ Screen or DOT's Disadvantaged Census Tract tool to identify the demographics of the communities potentially impacted by the project. Now let's talk grant funds, sources, and uses of these funds. This section should describe the budget for the United States Marine Highway Program project, i.e., the project scope that includes the United States Marine Highway Program funding and matching funds. The budget should not include any previously incurred costs. Project budgets show how different funding sources will share in each activity and present that data in dollars and percentages. The budget should identify other federal funds, if any, that the applicant intends to use. Applicants must include supporting documentation of funding commitments as an attachment to their application. If an applicant is a tribal government or has a proposed project in a rural area, it may request a federal share of above 80%, once again, by providing a brief explanation as to why the increased federal share is requested or needed. Now let's talk private sector applicants, additional information that will be needed for the application. In addition to the required Marine Highway Transportation Route Sponsor Endorsement Letter, all private sector applicants, including previous Marine Highway Program applicants, must provide the following additional information as attachments to their application: a description of the entity, including the location of the headquarters, a description of the entity's assets, i.e. tug, bars, or etc., years in operation, ownership, customer base, and a web address, if any, and the unique identifier of the parent company. The most recent year and audited, reviewed, and compiled financial statement as prepared by a certified public accountant, a CPA, per U.S. gradually accepted accounting principles, not tax-based accounting financial statements. Now, if the CPA prepared financial statements are not available, please provide the most recent financial statements for the entity. Do not provide tax returns. Statements regarding the relationship between applicants and any parents, subsidiaries, and affiliates in any such entity is going to provide a portion of the matching funds. Evidence documenting the applicant's ability to make proposed matching requirements, whether loan agreements, commitment from investors, cash on hand balance sheets, etc. Private sector application and additional information continued. Perform financial statements reflecting financial conditions at the beginning of the period, effect on balance sheet of grant and matching funds, for example, a decrease in cash or increase in debt, additional equity, and increase in fixed assets. The impact on the company's project's balance sheet after the project, showing that the company will have sufficient financial resources to remain in business, and a statement regarding if during the past 5 years, the applicant or any predecessor or relevant company has been in bankruptcy or reorganized under Chapter 11 of the Bankruptcy Code, or in any insolvency or reorganization proceeding, and whether any substantial property of the applicant or any percentage of related companies has been acquired in any such proceeding or has been subject to foreclosure or receivership during such period. If so, please provide those details. Additional information may be requested as deemed necessary by MARAD to facilitate and complete its review of the application. If such information is not provided, MARAD may deem the application incomplete and cease processing it. Now we will have my next colleague, Mr. Chris Clark. He will talk about the merit criteria of the application.
Thank you, Fred. We will now address merit criteria. All applicants should demonstrate how their project aligns with the merit criteria as outlined in section D and E of the NOFO. The merit criteria should include details that demonstrate the following: the need to develop, expand, or promote marine highway transportation, how the project expands the benefits of marine highway transportation, demonstrate the state, local, or private support generated for the project, and how the project is leveraging federal funding and its financial viability. When demonstrating the need to develop, expand, or promote marine highway transportation, the applicant should focus on the following: market need. What are the specific commodities, markets, and shippers the marine highway service is going to or is expected to attract? Project need. Why is the project needed to attract the specific commodities, markets, and shippers necessary? Project impact. What impact, if any, will the project have to the development, expansion, or promotion of the marine highway transportation service if the project is delayed or not completed? Demonstrating the need to develop, expand, and promote marine highway transportation criteria will be scored as follows. Projects that effectively demonstrate all three criteria will receive a high rating. Projects that effectively demonstrate only the market need and project need criteria will receive a medium rating. Projects that effectively demonstrate only project need criteria will receive a low rating. If the reviewer's assessment determines that the applicant does not adequately demonstrate the project need, a non-responsive rating will be given and the applicant will not be considered for award. Merit criteria. Expanding the benefits of marine highway transportation. The applicant should only describe the benefits directly attributable to the project, not those attributable to the overall marine highway transportation service. Project benefits will be evaluated on the following 5 categories: landside congestion and infrastructure savings, economic competitiveness, system resilience and redundancy, emission reductions and energy savings, and safety improvements. The applications must demonstrate benefits in a minimum of 4 categories, 2 of which must be landside congestion and infrastructure savings and economic competitiveness. To receive a medium rating, the applicants must demonstrate significant benefits in 3 categories, 2 of which must be landside congestion and infrastructure savings and economic competitiveness. Applicants that only demonstrate significant benefits in 2 categories, landside congestion and infrastructure savings and economic competitiveness, will receive a low rating. And applicants that do not demonstrate benefits to landside congestion and infrastructure savings and economic competitiveness will receive a non-responsive rating. All applicants must clearly document the support for the project. Supporters may include private sector and public sector partnerships and should include their level of commitment to the project as shown through attached letters of support from each. Private sector partners can include terminals, vessel operators, shipyards, shippers, trucking companies, railroads, third-party logistics providers, shipping lines, labor, and workforce. Public sector partners may include state departments of transportation, metropolitan planning organizations, municipalities, and other government entities, including tribal governments. It is vitally important that applicants demonstrate outside support for the proposed project in the form of letters of support, which will be a key factor in evaluating the undertaking. Applicants should endeavor to secure such letters from parties that have an interest in or would benefit from the project. Examples include municipalities such as cities or counties, labor unions, terminals, and beneficial cargo owners. Highest ratings will go to projects with letters of support from both public and private sector partners. The letter should clearly state how the project would increase the use of a marine highway transportation service and result in any commitments that demonstrate the financial viability of the service. An example would be a letter from a producer of widgets stating they would commit to using marine highway services for the carriage of 500 containers of their cargo per month from point A to point B over a period of 2 years. Medium ratings will go to applicants with letters of support from both public and private partners, but are absent a specific demonstration of how the project would result in financial commitments. Lowest ratings will go to applicants with letters of support from either public or private sector partners, but lack a specific demonstration of how the project would result in financial commitments. No letters of support of any type will result in a negative non-responsive rating. Please note that if an applicant is a private entity, the required endorsement letter from the Marine Highway Transportation Route sponsor will count as a letter of support. Letters of support must be submitted as an addendum to the project narrative via the applicant's website links. The financial viability of a proposed marine highway transportation project and services plays a central role in assessing awards. Applicants should demonstrate their ability to leverage United States Marine Highway Project funds from non-federal contributors and document how they will spend or use funds in an effective and efficient manner. Your application may also include a discussion of the applicant's business processes and operations and how the project and marine highway transportation service will remain viable throughout the life cycle of the project. Commitment letters and other relevant documents are required for affirmations of these statements. To receive the highest rating, applicants must prove a match of 40% or higher of the total project costs in non-federal funding. Note, however, that tribal governments and projects in rural areas will qualify for a high rating with lower thresholds. Applicants matching more than 20% but less than 40% of total project costs in non-federal funding will receive a medium rating. Applicants providing only the statutory minimum of 20% in non-federal fundings will receive a low rating. A less than 20% share match is considered non-responsive, and applicants will not be eligible for an award unless this is an application from a tribal government or projects in rural areas. Proposed new marine highway transportation services, as well as expansion of existing services, will be assessed on their likelihood of continued financial viability throughout the life cycle of the project. An unsatisfactory financial viability evaluation may result in a decrease in leverage ratings, even with high levels of non-federal contributions. As stated in the previous slide, private sector applicants will be asked to submit additional information which will be used to assess the financial viability of the project. I am now going to hand off to my colleague, Tori Collins, who will discuss selection criteria.
Thank you, Chris. So I'll be going over selection criteria. So central to the program is the applicant's ability to demonstrate how the project addresses these three primary selection considerations: climate change and sustainability, equity and justice 40, and workforce development, job quality, and wealth creation. The following, these will be discussed in depth in the following slides. So I'll start with climate change and sustainability. So there are many ways which applicants can address climate change and sustainability, as well as environmental justice in both the planning stage and project delivery. Priority, however, will be given to projects which advance this selection criteria. Applicants are encouraged to focus on the overall impact the project will have on their specific location and incorporate database factors that can be put in place to gauge the environmental impacts of the project. So we encourage you to address how your project will consider climate change, sustainability, environmental justice, both in the planning stage and in project delivery. So a few examples of what should be included when addressing this selection criteria. So first, the extent to which the project reduces greenhouse gas emissions in the transportation sector is essential. You also want to address, two, the incorporation of evidence-based climate resilience measures and features. 3, reduction of life cycle greenhouse gas emissions from project materials. 4, the extent to which the project avoids adverse environmental impacts to air or water quality, wetlands, and endangered species. And 5, finally, disproportionate negative impacts of climate change and pollution on disadvantaged communities, including natural disasters, with a focus on prevention, response, and recovery. So I want you to please refer to the notice of funding opportunities for additional examples regarding that selection criteria. So your application will be rated using the following rating criteria. Applications must incorporate climate change, sustainability, or environmental justice in both planning activities, and project elements will receive a high rating. Applications that incorporate climate change, sustainability, and environmental justice in either planning activities or project elements will receive a medium rating. Applications that incorporate climate change, sustainability, and environmental justice, but not all in planning activities or project elements, will receive a low rating. Please note that the failure to substantively address the criterion in either planning activities or project elements will receive a non-responsive rating. Most importantly, projects which will have a negative effect on climate change, sustainability, or environmental justice will receive a non-responsive rating. Equity and Justice 40. You are encouraged to address how your project will include an equity assessment that evaluates whether your project will create proportional impacts and remove transportation-related disparities to all populations in your project area. Examples of ways your project can address this particular selection consideration include: 1, conducting an equity assessment. 2, supporting workforce training programs that place underrepresented populations in jobs with free and fair choice to join a union. 3rd, demonstrating meaningful public engagement. And 4, describing how the project benefit will increase affordable transportation options, how it will benefit or how it would improve safety, connect Americans to good paying jobs, fight climate change, and or improve access to resources and quality of life. Although it's not required, you are free to use the U.S. Department of Transportation's Transportation Disadvantage Census Track at arcgis.com. It's a tool that's equivalent, or you can use this tool or tools that are equivalent in your assessment. Additional information regarding these examples on how to address equity can be found in the Notice of Funding Opportunities as well. Your application will be rated for Equity and Justice 40 using the following rating criteria. Applications that address each of the following areas will receive a high rating: equity-focused policies and related project initiatives, support of workforce training programs that place underrepresented populations into jobs with free and fair choice to join a union, and a detailed community or public participation plan or community participation strategy to facilitate meaningful project-related public engagement. An application should address two of the three reference areas will receive a medium rating. So an application that addresses only one of the three areas will receive a low rating. If your application does not address any of the reference areas, or if reviewers conclude that your project would have a negative impact on equity and justice 40, your application will receive a non-responsive rating. Workforce development, job quality, and wealth creation. Here we will consider to the extent your project addresses workforce development, job quality, and wealth creation. Examples of these items in your project plan that we may prioritize for selection consideration include the following. A creation of good paying jobs with a free and fair choice or free and fair chance to join a union in project construction. 2, incorporation of strong labor standards. 3, promotion of investments in high quality workforce development programs. 4, implementation of hiring policies and workplace cultures, promoting the entry and retention of underrepresented populations. And 5, promotion of local inclusive economic development and entrepreneurship, such as utilization of disadvantaged business enterprise, DBE, minority-owned business, women-owned business, or 8A firms. Additional information addressing workforce development, job quality, and wealth creation can be found in the Notice of Funding Opportunities. So regarding your application and how it will be rated for workforce development, job quality, and wealth creation, we'll be using the following rating criteria. An application that demonstrates a strong organizational commitment to advancing workforce development, job quality, and wealth creation will receive a high rating. An application that addresses workforce development, job quality, and wealth creation to some degree will receive a medium rating. Applications that only partially address workforce development, job quality, and wealth creation will receive a low rating. Please note again that if your application does not address workforce development, job quality, and wealth creation, this criterion, it will receive a non-responsive rating. So I'm going to hand it over to Rob Stewart, who's going to discuss project readiness, domestic preference, and environmental risk.
Thank you, Tori. I will now address project readiness. Your application will receive a project readiness rating based on the ratings it receives for technical capacity, environmental risk. You should include sufficient information for MARAD to evaluate whether a project is reasonably expected to begin construction in a timely manner, consistent with applicable local, state, and federal requirements. Next slide, please. Regarding technical capacity, applicants should 1. Describe their history and experience of delivering similar projects or completing a federally supported project. 2. Demonstrate their project's feasibility or constructability and schedule. 3. Describe how the project, such as design and construction, will comply with applicable federal requirements. 4. Describe how and when cost data in the budget was compiled and degree and design completion used to compile the cost information if applicable. And 5, inform whether the project is part of an ongoing planning effort. It is important to address project readiness and project schedule, including all major milestones. For capital project applications, examples of such milestones include state and local planning approvals, start and completion of NEPA, and other environmental reviews and approvals, including permitting, design completion, real property and right-of-way acquisition, approval of plans, specifications, and estimates, procurement, project partnership and implementation agreements, including agreements with non-governmental entities involved in or impacted by the project, and construction. For planning projects, examples of milestones may include start dates, schedule for public engagement, and completion dates. The project schedule should be sufficiently detailed to demonstrate that the project can begin quickly upon obligation of United States Marine Highway Program funds, and that the grant funds will be spent expeditiously once a project starts, in order for MARAD to make the determination. Risks do not disqualify projects from award, but competitive applications clearly and directly describe achievable risk mitigation strategies. An applicant's lack of previous experience with federally funded grants will not disqualify a project from consideration. A project with mitigated risks is more competitive than a comparable project with unaddressed risks. Applicants should include a discussion of project risks and related mitigation strategies. The discussion focus on, but need not be exclusively related to, risks related to project readiness. For example, the applicant should identify project risks such as approval or permit delays, procurement delays, technical challenges in design or construction, environmental uncertainties, potential increases in project costs, or lack of required approvals that affect the likelihood of successful project start and completion. The narrative should include a discussion that identifies how the project parties will mitigate or otherwise be able to handle the identified risks. Applicants should address compliance with the National Environmental Policy Act, often referred to as NEPA, and they should include sufficient information for MARAD to evaluate whether a project is reasonably expected to begin construction in a timely manner, consistent with all applicable local, state, and federal requirements. To assist MARAD's project environmental risk review, the applicant should provide the information requested on NEPA class of action and status, which includes categorical exclusion, environmental assessment, finding of no significant impact, or environmental impact statement record of decision. Required approvals and permits, public involvement, and right-of-way acquisition plans, if applicable. The applicant should indicate the anticipated NEPA level of review for the project and describe any environmental analysis in progress or completed. Detail the type of NEPA review underway, where the project is in the process, and indicate the anticipated date of completion of all milestones and of the final NEPA determination. If applicable, applicants should include a description of discussions with the appropriate MARAD NEPA coordinator in the Office of Environmental Compliance regarding the project's compliance with NEPA and other applicable federal environmental reviews and approvals. The applicant should be aware that the final determination of NEPA class of action will be made by MARAD after announcement of project selections. The successful applicant will be responsible for the completion of MARAD's NEPA documentation in collaboration with MARAD's NEPA coordinator in the Office of Environmental Compliance prior to execution of the grant agreement. The application should demonstrate receipt or reasonably anticipated receipt of all environmental permits and approvals necessary, such as Army Corps of Engineers permits and consultations under Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, for the project to proceed to construction on the timeline specified in the project schedule and necessary to meet the obligation deadline, including satisfaction of all federal, state, and local requirements and completion of the NEPA process. Additionally, the application should reference environmental studies or other documents, preferably through a website link, that describe in detail known project impacts and possible mitigation for those impacts, and, if applicable, right-of-way acquisition plans with detailed schedule and compensation plans. The applicant should also include a description of public engagement about the project that has occurred, proactively inclusive of historically disadvantaged communities, including details on compliance with environmental justice requirements and the degree to which public comments and commitments have been integrated into project development and design. The successful applicant, in collaboration with MARAD, will be responsible for the completion of consultations under Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. Furthermore, the applicant should demonstrate receipt or reasonably anticipated receipt of state and local approvals on which the project depends, such as state and local environmental permitting and planning. For projects acquiring a State Department of Transportation-owned right-of-way, applicants should demonstrate that they have coordinated the project with the State Department of Transportation or transportation facility owner. Additional support from relevant state and local officials is not required, However, an applicant should demonstrate that the project has broad public support. An application should also indicate whether the proposed project requires reviews or approval actions by other agencies, provide detailed information about the status of those reviews or approvals, and should demonstrate compliance with any other applicable federal, state, or local requirements, and when such approvals are expected. Applicants should provide a website link or other reference to copies of any reviews, approvals, and permits prepared. A description of whether the project is dependent on or affected by U.S. Army Corps of Engineers investment and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers planned activities as it relates to the project, if applicable, should be included. All marine highway projects awarded funding under fiscal year 2023 Notice of Funding Opportunities must comply with the requirements of the Build America, Buy America Act, which requires that all iron, steel, manufactured products, and construction materials used in the project are produced in the United States. Generally, this means that you should not use funds under this award unless all manufacturing processes of iron, steel, and construction materials occurs in the United States, and all manufactured products are manufactured in the United States, and the cost of the products components manufactured in the United States is greater than 55% of the total cost of all components. If an applicant proposes to use foreign content, MARAD asks that it provide information demonstrating that the item is not manufactured domestically, including its efforts to maximize domestic content in the proposed project in order for MARAD to best assess the application for funding. MARAD will not award projects that likely need a Buy America waiver, but do not present a plan to maximize domestic content. Applicants can refer to term B5, Bravo 5, of the exhibits to MARAD grant agreements under the fiscal year 2022 United States Marine Highway Program, dated November 16, 2022, to see how MARAD intends to implement the Build America, Buy America Act requirements for fiscal year 2023 United States Marine Highway Program funds. I will now pass the presentation back over to Tim Pickering to address our remaining topics and to conclude today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. So applications will be evaluated for their alignment with the merit criteria. Merit will also consider the extent to which applications align with the selection considerations and may give priority to those projects that align well when selected among similarly rated applications. Applicants must satisfy the three determinations identified in 46 U.S.C. 55601 D7 prior to award selection. Those statutory determinations are: the eligible applicant has sufficient funding available to meet the matching requirements. The marine highway project will be completed without reasonable delay. The eligible applicant has the authority to carry out the project. Applications must be submitted to grants.gov. To apply through grants.gov, you need to have a valid, unique entity identifier, formerly a DUNS number. Create a grants.gov username and password. Complete authorized organization representative, AOR registration in grants.gov. Register with the System for Awards Management, SAM, at www.sam.gov. Note, we no longer accept a DUNS number. And also note that some of these requirements take several weeks to complete, so please start the application process early so you don't get caught at the end. Selected awards. Recipients of an award will not receive a lump sum cash disbursement at the time of an announcement of project selection or obligation of funds. Instead, United States Marine Highway Program grant funds will reimburse recipients only after a grant agreement has been executed, allowable expenses are incurred, and a valid request for reimbursement has been submitted and approved by MARAD. Any costs incurred prior to MARAD's obligation of funds for a project are ineligible for reimbursement and are ineligible to count as matching for cost share requirements unless pre-approved by MARAD. All awards will be administered pursuant to the uniform administrative requirements, cost principles, and audit requirements for federal awards found in 2 CFR Part 200 as adopted by DOT at 2 CFR Part 1201. Additionally, other applicable federal laws, executive orders, and any rules, regulations, requirements of MARAD will apply to the projects that receive United States Marine Highway Program grant awards. So that concludes the presentation. Thank you for attending. I know it was a long presentation with a lot of information. Please take what you learned here and then refer to the NOFO for guidance on the application process. As a reminder, the webinar presentation, the slide deck, and the frequently asked questions will be posted a day or two after the webinar. We will now try to address any questions you may have or that you have emailed to mh@dot.gov. And please raise your hand if you have a question. Okay, let me. Someone has their hand up.
Tim,
Nope.
would you like me to stop sharing?
Yes, please. That's fine. Okay, I saw someone put a hand up for a moment, and then it went down. Okay, did we have anything from the Marine Highway inbox?
No, sir, not yet.
Okay. Andrew, please.
Yeah, hi, thanks. My question was probably answered early in the presentation, but I wasn't sure I understood it completely. Up till now, our understanding about making an application for grants required an MPO, Department of Transportation, or Transportation Council, to write a letter of designation to the secretary. I think I understood that is no longer a requirement, but that there is a designated sponsoring entity in each state or for each highway sector. Could you explain
Yes,
that again, please?
Yes, so the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 23 removed the requirement for project designation as a prerequisite for grant for applying for our grant program. In place of that, private entities or Alaska Native corporations can apply, but they have to have the approval of the route sponsor of the marine highway route upon which they are located or plan to operate. And those lists of the route sponsors is on our webpage. There's a link to it in the slide deck, and it is also attached to the NOFO on grants.gov.
Thank you. I did see that list, and I see one for both M87 and M95, which I'm surprised are different entities. But the question is, it still requires the private business or entity to communicate with that sponsor and give them, certainly let them know the extent of the project and how it benefits that corridor. So is there a formal way of introducing this project to that sponsor? I just see an email address and a name and a phone number.
Our gateway directors, who are also, I think we have a link to them as well. You can reach out through them, and they can make introductions if needed.
Okay. And there is a New York, a New York gateway person.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, that's all I need to know.
Okay. Yeah, and I understand it's a little confusing why they have different sponsors, but when they usually the state DOTs applied for those designations, and so that's who the route sponsor is. And we did confirm those, and we did have a webinar with them last week, 2 webinars with them 2 weeks ago, actually, to let them know their new roles and responsibilities under this. Okay, any other questions? Okay, looks like we have something in the inbox. Last year, the NWSA and Port of Anchorage were awarded a project designation for the extension of the M5 route between Seattle, Tacoma, and Alaska. The M5 route sponsors are agencies in California and Oregon, not Washington or Alaska. If we or our private sector partners want to apply for funding, we are concerned that California and Oregon agencies may not be able or willing to endorse projects that will occur outside their states, particularly if they may compete with projects within their borders. Can former project sponsors endorse applications as well by being folded into the definition of route sponsors? Unfortunately, no. The statute was specific about requiring the route sponsors. If there's some confusion about this, because I see that if you have a service, the Port of Anchorage is part of the M5 Alaska, and they are a route sponsor, the Alaska DOT. So you can use them as for that if you're concerned about California. Also, the M5 has 3 route sponsors, which are the 3 state DOTs along the route. So you could contact any one of those, preferably the one where the service would be operating from, but any of them can actually give you authority or give you approval to request a grant. Okay, we have another from the chat. Does the project need to be on an existing MARAD route to qualify? Yes, it has to. It can go from be on a single route, so something on the, up and down the Mississippi River, or it can go from one route to another, and it doesn't have to be through contiguous water. So you could, we have the M2, which is in Puerto Rico. You could have a service between the M95 and the M2, for example. So it does not have to be contiguous waters. Okay. Oh, okay, here's another question. Wouldn't it make sense to have a project sponsor for each state on a route? Well, we can only go by what is authorized, which are the route sponsors, and they were actually had to apply to the secretary to receive that designation as a route. So as of now, all we can say is that you have to go to the existing route sponsors. Okay, also from the chat, was it said that planning grants will be scored lower? I believe it said they would be less competitive than a capital grant. Yes. Jeff Udmark, see your hands up. Jeff, did you have a question? I think you're on mute. So
yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Okay, thank you again for running the webinar. Very, very interesting and helpful. From grants and awards that have been made in the past, can you offer us an approximate number of how many were planning grants and how many were capital grants?
Historically, I would hesitate to guess. They were generally no more than 1 to 2 a year, but I mean, we can give you that answer, public information, so we can look it up for you if you'd like, but I don't have the answer off the top of my head.
Okay.
I would say it's probably in the 15% range, maybe 1 in 7, something like that.
Thank you.
Yes, Tim, we have another question from Michael Halstead. He asked,
Okay, go ahead.
ferry service often transport cargo and goods, especially to those ferry services on islands. Would they be eligible?
Yes,
And
we can.
to answer,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Fred. Please, I've been
yes,
speaking.
to answer your question, Mr. Halstead, yes, they are eligible. Another question here from Aaron Renders. It says, how are rural or tribal area applications ranked if they request more than 80% federal share? Still non-responsive, or is there a different designation?
No, actually, during the webinar, we said that if you're rural or tribal, you would and you request less, you would get the highest score. Okay. Any other questions?
Answer your question,
yeah, go ahead.
To answer your question, Aaron, they will still not be, they will not be ranked as non-responsive. Okay. I don't think there's any more questions in the chat. You're on mute, Tim.
I'll say I don't see any in the group chat, and I don't see any more hands up.
Okay.
So wait a couple more minutes, but if I will hang on along with my staff, but if you want to drop off, please do. And thank you for attending, and we'll stick around for a few minutes to see if there's any more questions. Yes, Bruce.
So how long do you think you'll have this webinar available and posted so people will know it's available?
We will pull the recording down and get it to Public Affairs to have it posted, I would think, by tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, because I didn't know if there was any follow-up regarding, the time frame for that, and I'll share it with my stakeholders.
Yes, I know we also had some people I saw came on late, and I said sorry if there was some confusion about the time, or if you had other meetings. Again, as we stated, this was recorded or is being recorded right now, and it will be posted to the Marine Highway webpage for viewing at your leisure. And if you have any questions that you think of after this, please again send them to mh@dot.gov. Even those that come in after the webinar will be captured, answered, and posted with the frequently asked questions. Okay, anything further? If not, thank you for attending. And again, if you have any questions, please send them to our Marine Highway inbox, and we will respond to them via the FAQs. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.